Hey guys, it's Meg and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be setting up my journal ready for March, and the sponsor of today's video is Creative Fabrica, so more about them later, and let's just get into it. So the theme I'm going with for March is a kind of pinboard and sticky notes collage kind of vibe, along with plants, because I think the two work really well together. So for the title, I've started off by drawing little pieces of paper that look like they're kind of stuck on with a bit of washi tape, and then we've also got some little doodles around the page that I will be using to fill in various bits of details, like a mini calendar and stuff. And then of course I'm going straight in with some plant doodles. So this one down in the left hand corner is my favourite one to draw. I think once you've coloured it in and add a bit of shading, it looks quite realistic but still doodly, if that makes sense. And I also gave this one a nice big pop so I can add a little design to it and make it really fun and arty. Then I'm filling in the numbers on my mini calendar, and I always like to have the initials for each day of the week above it so that I can easily look and see which day of the week each date will fall on. Then to add a wiggly line around the top of the page for my fairy lights, and then I'm just rubbing out the pencil marks ready to add the background. So as I said at the beginning, I want this to all look like it's stuck on one of those wire grid type of pinboards that you can sit above your desk or something and pin notices on and sticky notes and all of that. So that is very much the vibe for this. So I'm creating a grid behind everything, which will make it all look kind of 3D and as if it's sticking onto it at the end. So if you are wanting to replicate this design, just make sure you don't draw the line through any of your doodles, as that will kind of ruin the illusion. But if you start your grid one line down from the top and one line in from the side, you can fit all of these lines in perfectly, and I feel like leaving 2 dots between each line on the grid paper gives it this perfect square size that I've drawn here. Then make sure your ink has dried before you start rubbing out so you don't smudge it, and then we can move on to the title. So I've got these little pieces of paper stuck onto the grid board, and I'm using different coloured pens for each of the letters of March, just to add to that kind of colourful and playful look that we're going for. All of the pens and everything I'm using I'll make sure is on my Amazon storefront, so I'll have it all linked in the description for you. But I really do love these fine liners that I've used for the title. They're so bright and pigmented, but they're also like the perfect size pen tip, so I would definitely recommend them if you're looking for some coloured fine liners. So now I'm starting to colour in the plants down in the left hand corner, and as I said, I kind of want it to look a little bit realistic but also still doodly, if that is even possible. But in order to get some level of realism to it, you really need to add shadows. I feel like that's the key to making things look a bit more lifelike rather than just a flat block of colour. So here I've used a slightly lighter green for the top and left a little gap along the bottom edge of each leaf to add a darker green, so it creates a more lifelike shadow to it. As leaves, when you look at them, they aren't just one flat green colour. There's definitely more tones in there. You could add even more shades to it than I have, but I find a lighter colour and then a darker colour for some shadow just really kind of ups the game of your colouring, so it's an easy thing to do, and try it out. You can also add some smaller details like vines going through the middle, but it's totally up to you. Just use a variety so that you've got a good amount of variation across the page. Then, as I said, I wanted to have a larger pot for this plant so that I could add a little design to it, which is what I'm doing here. I have used this before in various custom journals or other pieces of content I've done, and I just love the way it looks. I use the light beige Crayola Super Tip for this, and I just draw a really simple grid and then colour in every other one, and you get this really cute little checkerboard effect. Then in order to choose which colours I'm going to be using elsewhere across the page, I'm picking colours out of the title, so the blue, pink, kind of teal, orange and green, and I'm just going to try and incorporate these somewhere on the page, doing that whole balancing of the colours that I'm always talking about. I just feel like it is the #1 thing that makes your page and your spreads look put together. Having an evenly distributed colour palette just really makes it all look so good together, and I definitely think it's a skill that you can practice. You get better at spotting colours, you get better at spotting where colours need to be in the page in order to balance it out. So as I'm laying down the colours, that is just what's going through my mind. Then I'm adding the little light bulbs to the string of fairy lights that I've got around the top of the page. I changed it up a little bit this time from how I normally do them, so I just used the colour instead of drawing with a fine liner like a little light bulb or a circle. So I just used the yellow to create a circle, and I left a little gap in the middle, and what I was hoping to achieve was to make it look a bit more like a light bulb was glowing, so having a brighter centre with the white and then going to yellow on the outside. I'm not sure it entirely looks like that, but it still looks really cute, and it was a super quick way to do it. So if you like it, maybe try it out in your journals and just let me know which way you prefer to draw fairy lights. Maybe there's another way I've not tried yet which could also look really good. And then just to finish off, I used a really light grey to add some shadows around all of the doodles just to add to that 3D illusion I'm trying to create, and that's our cover page all complete. So now for a bit about our sponsor, Creative Fabrica. Creative Fabrica is the perfect place for all of your creative and crafty needs with all of the graphics and fonts you might want to use. I love the look of these adult colouring pages and the digital planning classes especially, but you could honestly spend hours browsing the website and there's definitely something in there for everyone. They even have bullet journal resources, which I particularly wanted to point out to you guys. They've got ready-made spreads for you to download and use digitally or print out and stick into your journal to save a bit of time setting up. Or you could print out some beautiful illustrations, a bit like these plant ones that I'm going to use, and add them to your pages. Creative Fabrica have very kindly provided us with a free trial so that you guys can check out their all-access subscription. This subscription gives you access to millions of graphics, fonts, classes and more, including personal, commercial and full print-on-demand use of the files included. The subscription renews at $9 a month after the free trial ends, but I would highly recommend upgrading to their yearly plan, which is 45% more affordable at just $4.99 a month. You can cancel anytime, no questions asked, so it really is a no-brainer. Go and check it out for yourself via the link in my description, and let me know what you decide to make first. But thank you so much to Creative Fabrica for sponsoring this part of the video, and let's get back now to my March journal setup. So now on to my little tracker page. I'm just drawing some little doodles. I've got a hanging plant basket in the top left hand corner, and then in the top right I've drawn a little squiggly square so that it looks like a sticky note stuck onto the wall, and then down at the bottom I'm drawing a bookshelf which is going to be my mood tracker. I think books really fits in with this theme with the plants and everything, so I thought it would make a perfect mood tracker. It's a super simple one to do, and sometimes the problem with mood trackers is it's hard to get a design that's really easy to replicate over and over for every day of the month, or you know, it's difficult to fit each one in to make sure you've got space for like 31 drawings. But a simple bookshelf is so easy, you can just add on another book onto the stack or onto the pile. So if you're ever stuck for a mood tracker idea, I think the bookshelf one always looks great, and yeah, just really easy to draw. Then I'm just finishing off my fairy lights as that joins onto the cover page on the left hand side. I like doing something that ties the two pages together because I just think it gives it a really nice cohesive look and makes the two pages look like a full cover page as a whole and kind of a nice introduction to the month. Then I get to do the fun part, which is of course adding in the colour. So I'm using that light beige from the potted plant on the left page for the hanging plant on this page, again using that balance, and then I'm just going over it with the same pen, slightly darker, to create a crisscross pattern to make it look a bit like a sort of wicker basket. I love drawing these little hanging plants because I think they look so cute and it just gives a bit of life to the page. And I just used the smallest size fine liner that I've got, normally a 0.05, to create some wiggly lines kind of going in all directions, some going upwards a little bit, some dangling lower down. To add the leaves, I literally just used the end of the pen and did a few dots along the vine, and I just think it looks super effective. Then I'm using a light brown to colour in the shelves, and although this isn't a colour I've used yet, I think because I'm using enough of it and it's close enough to the beige, it doesn't stick out as looking kind of random, so I feel like that works all fine. And then I used the blue fine liner from the M on the March lettering on the left hand side to make this sticky note look like grid paper like you would get in a maths book at school, and I just love how that makes it look a little bit scratchy scrapbooky and is a really easy way to add a bit of colour without having to colour in the entire square, which can be a bit time consuming. And then I used the orange pen to write goals. Here I can just obviously write goals for the month, but blue and orange are complementary colours, so they are always a good pair to put together. Then I'm just filling in the colours on my mood tracker key, of course using ones that are from the current colour palette, and added a little bit of white highlights onto my leaf on the left hand side just because I felt like it needed it. But that is our tracking page all complete. And finally, turning over the page, we're now going to do the habit tracker. This will be the last page because I've got an idea of a nice kind of artistic plant doodle that I want to create for this final page on the right hand side. So I'll show you guys that in a YouTube short or something at a later date. But yeah, for now we are doing the habit tracker page, very much in keeping with the style, and I'm bringing back that grid for the background on this one. So it looks like the 3 little habits are stuck onto this grid. And for the plant doodles on this page, I was just experimenting a little bit with some different types of plants, just kind of making it up as I go along, changing up the pots that they're in, just to give a bit of variety and have a bit of fun with it. The little sticky notes where the habit trackers are going to be are a little bit wobbly to make them look like paper. I'm not using a ruler for this because I want it to be in keeping with that doodly aesthetic that we're going for. And I've drawn in the mini calendars that I will then use to check off as I do the habits. I added in a little shelf doodle here because I thought it would be nice to include some of that brown from the previous page. And I also try to make the habit title look like a bit of wood that's kind of pinned up on the top of the board. So I hope you guys can kind of see what I'm going for here. And I have to say, I just really love how this whole theme has turned out. If you haven't yet decided what you're going to do for March, I would highly recommend giving this theme a go because I think it looks really impressive, but when you break it down into the shapes and what you actually need to draw, it's quite simple. Just lots of squares and rectangles and kind of leaf shapes, and that's about it. So yeah, if you do decide to give this one a go, make sure you let me know, and I would love to see how you guys kind of make this one your own. To make the wooden sign look a bit more realistic, I've just layered up this same brown pen to create some of those wooden details, just literally making little squiggly lines into it to look like the dents in the wood. And it really doesn't need to look accurate, as long as it portrays wood, then I guess that's all we're kind of going for. But other than that, I'm just finishing off colouring everything in, using the same colour palette from the previous page to make sure the whole theme looks cohesive, and trying to incorporate a little bit of shading here and there where it's possible. Super tips are quite thick on the top, so it's not so easy on these tiny little leaves, but do your best. And then I'm just having a little bit of fun with colouring in the pots. I decided to use that same checkerboard look that I'd done on the previous page, but I also did a stripy one and then a solid orange coloured one, and I think they look really cute together. Then I'm grabbing my light grey super tip again to create the shadows, and although it's really subtle, I think it's super effective and it really does make it look 3D. So if you take anything away from this video, then maybe just start adding a few really light subtle shadows to some of your doodles to make them stand off from the page a little bit more. But then it's just time for the finishing touches, adding some shadows where possible onto the leaves, filling in the habits that I'm going to be tracking, which for me this month are going to be making sure I take my vitamins, doing some cycling, like bike riding workouts, and trying to drink enough water because I've not been as good at that recently. And then I turned the camera off because I thought I was done, but when I looked back at the first page, I realised it kind of looked a bit empty compared to the cover page. So I just added in some of the fairy lights again and a little bit more highlights with the white gel pen. And then we really are done with the habit tracker. And there we have it, my bullet journal is all set up for March, and I just love this theme. I'm so happy with it. I think it might actually be one of my favourites, so let me know what you think of it down in the comments below, and let me know if you're going to try it out, or otherwise what your theme is going to be. Huge thank you again to Creative Fabrica for sponsoring this video, and don't forget to head to the free trial link down in my description so you can go and check out all the amazing fonts, graphics and classes that Creative Fabrica has to offer. And that's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I next upload, and I'll see you in the next one.